Hello, everyone. So, this particular topic that we are going to discuss is about the different types of production systems. While processes are something that are applied both in manufacturing as well as production systems, this particular types of production systems helps us understand in manufacturing, in production, what kind of different methods or systems are present and how the processes for them are going to be different. Now, if you break down the different types of production systems based upon the different activities that are required to be done before the product reaches the end consumer, you can think of them as identifying the different raw materials, designing the particular product, getting the particular raw materials from the suppliers, assembling or making that particular product, and then eventually delivering it to the customer. Maybe these are the different steps, not necessarily in that same order, but you can think of that from right from the design till the final delivery. Now, sometimes when you look at certain types of products, you will see that there are certain activities that are completely done before the customer even places an order. A very good example of that would be something like a a jar of probably a milk drink, like something like Horlicks or Complan. So if you want to purchase that particular product, the design, assembly, production, delivery to the retail store is all done even before you place an order, or even before you decide to buy that particular product. As opposed to that, if you're talking about something like you are going to a restaurant and asking the restaurant to make a very fine dish for you, the assumption is that majority of those components are available, but they have not started to make that. So in that particular situation, the chef has not yet started cooking that particular product and only starts to make that particular product after you place an order. So, based on these two types of things that we just discussed, we can identify two different types of production system. One, which is called as the make to stock, where the production is done in anticipation of demand, and make to order, where this production is done based upon the specific customer risk requirements after receiving the order. Now, as I discussed the different activities, if I'm dividing the entire set of activities before the product gets delivered to the customer as designing and sourcing, making up the components, assembling the components, and delivering the product, here, as you will see, the customer order is coming right after the product is delivered, let's say, to the retailer, right? Now, as opposed to that, if you look at in the make to order, the only thing that you are doing is you know how to design that particular dish because you've kept that in the menu or you've got that particular instructions from the customer, and you would have already sourced the raw materials, but making the components that are required by cooking them, assembling them in a nice way and plating them and delivering the product will only happen after the customer places an order. Now, these are the two different types of production systems that we can think of. Now, as you can clearly understand over here, in a make to stock, the customer is not really waiting for the product to be procured. The customer is directly going to a retail store and picking up that particular product or placing an order online and getting that particular product. As opposed to that, in a make to order, the customer has to wait for the product to be made and then delivered. So the time it takes from the moment you place an order till you get the product is much, much less in a make to stock as opposed to in a make to order situation. Now that creates another angle in the sense that when you are trying to talk about make to stock, the kind of variety that you can get is usually going to be limited because the customization is done even before you anticipate the demand. And in the make to order, there is a room for a lot of customization. So the variety that you can get in make to order is much more than what you would get in a make to stock. Now, as you can clearly see over here, the arrow pointing the customer order could be at different points in this particular system. So I could put this particular customer order to be before delivering the product, or designing and sourcing, or assembling. So based on that, you can also perceive that there are other types of production systems. One which is called as assembling to order, where you are partially making that particular components and keeping it ready, and when the customer comes in, you are just assembling them and giving it away. Or in the specific case of making very niche products which are completely customized based upon the customer requirement, you would call them as engineer to order, where the design of the product also starts after the customer specify the requirements. A very good example of assemble to order is the case of Subway, right? So some of you would have visited the restaurant of Subway, where you know that the components which are required to make the Subway foot long is usually going to be all ready, and all you have to do is mention these are the components that are required, and that foot long can be created, right? Now, as opposed to that, in an engineer to order, a good example of that would be a specific construction of your house that you are building, or some of your parents who might be building that particular thing. You would see that this particular product, which is a house that needs to be constructed, is completely based upon the customer requirements. The design, the interiors, everything only starts after the customer specifies that, right? Now, only after that you get the required raw materials, make the components, assemble them, and then deliver the product, right? Now, this also adds complexity to the variety, right? As you can clearly see, engineer to order gives complete customization, but also adds a lot of time for delivery, right? So the lead time, which is what we call as a time gap between the customer placing the order and you receiving the product, is what we call as lead time. The lead time is very high in engineer to order, slightly less in make to order, even less in assemble to order, and the least in a make to stock system. Now, as you can see over here, assemble to order is somewhere between a make to order and a make to stock. Now, this particular assemble to order was one of the revolutionary things that Dell computers actually brought in to the system, where they had used this option of assembling the components so that they don't have to carry a lot of inventory of the products, but also provide the customization that the customer wants, right? Now, these are the different types of production systems, and based on these production systems, the processes that are used, the lead time that is there, the variety that you can provide, all of that changes. Thank you.